into words, but I like Tigger. There's a certain quality that I feel that I became identified with in my own mind.
Somewhere in America, a child is laughing. It is a Saturday morning in the 1960s, and on a flickering black and white screen, a wooden boy with a painted grin is trading jokes with the gentle man who gives him a voice. The child does not know the man's name. Almost no child ever did. They knew the puppets Jerry Mahoney with his wisecracks and sweet, dim-witted knucklehead Smith, and later they would know the bouncing orange tiger whose joyful laugh echoed through an entire generation's childhood. What that laughing child could never have guessed was this. The man making the puppet talk was hiding a secret. He held a United States patent for a human heart. Not a toy, not a stage prop. A working mechanical heart designed to be sewn into a living chest and to keep a dying person alive when their own heart failed. The voice of Tigger had quietly designed one of the first artificial hearts in history. And almost no one in America had any idea. This is the story of Paul Winchell, a man the whole country watched and almost no one truly saw. A man who hid a brilliant, restless, wounded mind behind a smiling piece of painted wood. And to understand the secret he carried and the bitter price he would one day pay for it, you have to go all the way back to a frightened, stuttering little boy on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and a single purchase that cost him 10 cents and quietly saved his life. He was born Paul Wilczynski in 1922, the son of a struggling tailor in a cramped apartment, crowded with the noise of the city. By his own account, given decades later, it was not a happy home. He would describe a childhood lived in the shadow of an overbearing mother, whose anger he could never seem to escape, and a loneliness that clung to him no matter where he went. Then his own body seemed to turn against him. While he was still a small boy, he was struck down by polio, and for a time the muscles in his legs withered beneath him. He clawed his way back through sheer stubborn will, lifting weights year after year to rebuild what the illness had stolen. But there was a second wound, and no amount of exercise could mend it. Paul Winchell stuttered. The words would lock in his throat, and the harder he strained to push them out, the worse the jam became. For a lonely child, already surrounded by people quick to laugh at him, it was a kind of prison. A boy who could not speak. A boy nobody wanted to listen to. And then, at the age of 12, he noticed a small advertisement tucked into the back pages of a magazine. A ventriloquism kit. 10 cents. Something about it reached out to him. He sent away for it. Back at school, he worked up the courage to ask his art teacher, a kind man named Jero Magun, whether he might build a ventriloquist's dummy for class credit. The teacher said yes, and in quiet gratitude, the boy named his little wooden creation, Jerry Mahoney. Here is the strange and beautiful thing that happened next. When Paul Winchell spoke through the dummy, the stutter vanished. The very words that betrayed him as himself flowed out perfectly through someone else. For the first time in his short, painful life, the silenced boy had found a voice. As he would put it many years later, he had finally found his place in the sun. He was a natural. As a teenager, he won the most famous radio talent contest of the era, and the prize sent him touring theaters across the country. He turned professional before he was old enough to drive. And within just a few short years, the lonely boy from the Lower East Side would own Saturday Morning in America, but the applause would hide something. Even as the whole nation fell in love with his puppets, a strange obsession was quietly taking root inside him, an obsession that had nothing at all to do with comedy and everything to do with the mysteries of the human body. Through the 1950s and the 1960s, Paul Winchell became one of the most beloved entertainers in the country, even if a great many of his most devoted fans were under the age of 10. He hosted his own program in prime time, and then the show that would define him for an entire generation of children, a bright, busy Saturday morning world built around Jerry Mahoney and the gentle, dim-witted knucklehead Smith, and he was by any honest measure a true innovator. He pioneered a clever trick in which the performer slipped a hand into the sleeve of the dummy so that the little wooden figures seemed to gesture and move their arms as they spoke. The respected Look magazine twice named him the most versatile performer on all of television. His puppets felt so genuinely alive that decades later, they would be enshrined behind glass in the Smithsonian Institution, itself treated as national treasures. And his connection to a certain famous game show ran deeper than most people ever realized. When the celebrity favorite Hollywood Squares created a children's version of itself called Storybook Squares, it was Paul Winchell and his puppets who took their place on that giant tic-tac-toe grid. It would turn out to be his last regular appearance on camera with the very dummies that had made him a household name. Then came the voice that would outlive everything else he ever did. In 1968, the Walt Disney Studio hired him to play a bouncing, irrepressible, spring-tailed tiger named Tigger. Winchell gave the character his unmistakable bowing and that joyful, tumbling laugh, and he would go on to voice Tigger for more than 30 years. He even won a Grammy Award for it. That same remarkable voice became the sneering cartoon villain Dick Dastardly, and the scheming wizard Gargamel, and dozens upon dozens of other characters. An entire generation grew up loving the sound of Paul Winchell without ever once learning his name. America believed it knew exactly who this man was, a fellow who made puppets talk, a maker of children's laughter. Pleasant, harmless, simple. They had no idea that, in the quiet hours far away from the cameras and the studio lights, the man behind Tigger was teaching himself to build a beating heart. Here is the part of Paul Winchell's life that sounds like something out of fiction. The boy who had never been able to finish a proper, formal education had all his life secretly burned to become a doctor. The Great Depression had crushed any hope his family ever had of paying for medical school, but it never managed to kill the dream. So as a grown man at the very height of his fame, Paul Winchell quietly enrolled in pre-medical studies at Columbia University. He studied acupuncture and earned a degree in it. He worked of all things as a medical hypnotist, and above all else he invented, relentlessly, over the course of his life, Paul Winchell would hold more than 30 separate patents: a disposable razor, a flameless cigarette lighter, a portable machine to safely thaw frozen blood plasma, battery-heated gloves for the cold, a retractable pen that quietly anticipated the modern ballpoint we all use today. He even dreamed up a humanitarian plan he called the Tilapia Project, a scheme to raise fast-breeding fish to feed the hungry in the poorest corners of the world. The same restless mind that had carved a voice for Jerry Mahoney simply could not stop building things. But his true masterpiece began of all the unlikely places on a dance floor. Winchell once competed in a televised dance contest against the dashing actor Ricardo Montalban, and astonishingly, he won, taking home a brand new automobile. At the celebration afterward, he was introduced to a doctor named Henry Heimlich, the very man who would one day give the world the life-saving Heimlich maneuver. The two of them became friends for life, and together, these two unlikely partners turned their attention to the single most ambitious problem a human being could possibly imagine: finding a way to replace the failing human heart. In the early 1960s, Paul Winchell filed for and was granted one of the first United States patents for a mechanical artificial heart, a device meant to be implanted directly inside the chest cavity. Sit with that for just a moment. The voice of Tigger had drawn up the blueprints for an organ designed to keep a human being alive. We all grew up believing that Tigger was nothing but bounce-all energy and no brains. The truth, it turns out, was very nearly the exact opposite. Behind that silly, beloved voice was one of the most curious, inventive, and genuinely unusual minds in the entire history of American show business. He had patented a way to keep a human heart beating. What Paul Winchell could not possibly have known in that proud moment was that this invention, the achievement he treasured most in all the world, was about to be taken away from him. If you are as haunted as I am by the people who hid an entire second life just behind a familiar smiling face, then stay with me, because this is the part of the story where everything turns dark. Paul Winchell did not selfishly keep his invention locked away. In an act of real generosity, he donated his heart patent to the University of Utah, where a team of researchers was chasing the very same dream. And years later, in 1982, that team made history. A mechanical heart they called the Jarvik-Seven was implanted into the chest of a dying man named Barney Clark, and a stunned world watched the news in awe. The device was named in honor of the doctor who led the project, Robert Jarvik. His name became famous overnight. His face appeared everywhere, and the name Paul Winchell was nowhere to be found. Winchell believed to the very end of his life that his own pioneering work had helped make that famous heart possible, and that his credit and his place in the story had been quietly and completely erased. His loyal friend Henry Heimlich agreed with him, insisting publicly that Winchell's design had been folded directly into the celebrated device. The doctor who received all the glory firmly denied it. The argument was never truly settled, and it trailed Winchell like a long shadow for the rest of his days. The man who had given so freely was left to watch his greatest gift be claimed by another, and it was not the only thing that would be taken from him. The television company that had once aired his beloved Saturday morning children's show did something almost impossible to comprehend. It destroyed the tapes, every single recording of his cherished 1960s world, gone, wiped away, erased as though it had never existed at all. Winchell took them to court, and after years of fighting the Supreme Court, eventually awarded him nearly $18 million. But no court verdict on earth could give the work itself back. The performances that an entire generation had grown up adoring had simply been scrubbed from the face of the earth. And underneath all of it, the public triumphs and the private bitterness alike, there was still that frightened little boy from the Lower East Side. When Paul Winchell finally sat down to write the story of his own life, the book startled the people who read it. It was raw, unflinching, almost brutal in its honesty about the deep pain he had carried with him ever since childhood. That joyful, bouncing laugh, it turned out, had always been built directly over a private and lifelong ache. The man who spent his entire career giving other people a voice had, in truth, spent much of it quietly struggling to make sense of his own. By the time the world was finally beginning to understand who Paul Winchell had truly been all along, he was already running out of time. Paul Winchell died on the 24th of June in the year 2005 at his home in California. He was 82 years old, and he passed gently in his sleep. He left behind a legacy almost too strange and too sprawling to fit inside a single human life. Jerry Mahoney and Knucklehead Smith, the little wooden boys, who had once given a stuttering child his very first voice, now rest in the Smithsonian preserved as national treasures. Somewhere deep in the patent records of the United States still sits the careful design for a human heart, drawn by hand by a man the public knew only as a cartoon tiger. And to this day, every single time a child laughs at Tigger bouncing across a screen, that child is hearing the voice of one of the most quietly underestimated geniuses that television ever produced. Stop and think about what that really means. The whole country watched Paul Winchell. They laughed along with his puppets, they sang along with his tiger, and they decided easily and completely that they knew exactly who he was. Simple. Silly. A man who made little dolls talk, but they never saw the inventor. They never saw the doctor who never received his degree and yet earned his patents anyway. They never saw the wounded, lonely boy who taught himself to speak only by speaking through someone else. and they never saw the quiet bitterness of a man who designed a human heart and was forced to watch another man take the credit for it. America watched Paul Winchell for his entire life and somehow managed to almost completely miss him, which leaves us all with one quiet, unsettling question. How many others were there? How many of those familiar faces from the old living room screens, the comedians, the game show, regulars, the warm and friendly voices we were all so certain we understood, were quietly hiding a whole second life just out of frame? If this story stayed with you, you will find a great many more of them right here. The real and hidden lives behind the faces that once filled America's living rooms, and the secrets they kept locked away until the very end. Subscribe, and we will keep telling them.